What can happen when you say hello to a stranger?
Do conversations get easier as time goes on?
Exactly. I've just kind of always been one who has been excited about life. I want my face to say, really, that Jesus is real.
You're really very intentional, and I think it's a great thing.
Man, people that like, man, we can go to lunch, but I got 30 minutes. I'm like, we're not even gonna go to lunch. I need 90.
Wow.
Listening is so close to love that people don't know the difference.
That's a really good fact.
I remember everything about that experience.
This week on the Reach Podcast. Well, hey, everybody. I am here today with Johnny Russell, Search in Tyler, Texas. He's our area director, and very excited that you're here because I didn't actually realize this until right now, but it's the 1-year anniversary of Johnny Russell coming to Search Ministries.
Today,
so,
February 12th.
It's pretty amazing. This won't come out till August, but no, I'm kidding. Welcome. Seriously. Congratulations. 1 year in. It's exciting. It's been fun having you, man, and I really appreciate you being here today. A little about Johnny. Comes to us from Young Life, had a 25-year career there, did some amazing work. He's been having these kind of conversations that we're going to talk about for a really long time. Married to Taylor, 4 kids, just a great guy, great family, and an interesting person. And I thought, they've been telling me, by the way, I need to get more interesting introductions for folks. So I said, I've got an interesting person here.
Okay.
So give us, what's one interesting fact about Johnny Russell that the people should know?
Well, I would say I have one that's, you can air right now, and one you may have to edit. But I think both are okay.
Okay.
I would say, I don't know if it's that interesting, but people know me kind of loud, gregarious, over the top, but I am an excellent listener.
That is true.
Excellent listener.
You are a really good listener. That's a really good fact, and it's something
Thank
I've
you.
really appreciated getting to know you for real. And I do want to get into a conversation. That's why we're here talking today. We're going to talk through a conversation you've had with somebody as you're trying to share your faith. So what's the scenario, man? Set it up.
Yeah, so it's kind of multifaceted. So first of all, I'm having lunch with an individual, and this individual has made some poor decisions in his life that has affected his workplace. He's a business owner that has affected his marriage, separated from a bride, has caused separation between him and his kids. And, in the Christian world, those things, people can feel like outcasts in those situations. And so this guy wanted to lean into his life, and he seems to enjoy us being around each other. We had actually gone on a canoe trip, a father-son canoe trip, about 2 years prior, and we had stayed connected. We got real close on this trip. His son was a graduating senior. My son was 8, but they even connected. And we had this, was at that time I was learning about his divorce and this poor decisions that he was making. And so I wanted to be in his world, like tell him truth, speak hard things, push him to Jesus. And so we are meeting, and he tells me he's going to be a few minutes late. We're going to be meeting at Wingstop. Love me some chicken wings. So I go ahead and get his order. I'm going to be paying for the meal.
Which is very generous because Wingstop is
it's like $40.
Ridiculously expensive.
Yes, absolutely. And so I've got his meal. So I walk in, and there behind the counter is a lady. And, I'm dressed pretty similar to this. However you feel about this dress, this is kind of who I am. You say it preppy. I'm always tucked in, that kind of thing. No makeup. But so I walk in, and there is a lady behind the counter who looks very different than me. Okay. She's, she isn't dressed like this. She's in a Wingstop uniform, but she has lots of tattoos on her body, which I'm okay. Tattoos are cool, I guess. But up into her neck, on her face, and she doesn't look very excited about life. And I've just kind of always been one who has been excited about life. Been like, man, I want my personality, want my face to say really that Jesus is real. Okay. Yeah. And so I walk in, and I love people who wear name badges. Most people who work at grocery stores or restaurants wear a name badge. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. And so I walk up and I'll change her name. I was like, Dory, what is up? You know, act like we are long lost friends. And she kind of looks at me like she's, you know, upset. And I was like, how are you doing? How's your day? And she's not excited about her day. And so I begin to order. I begin to place my buddy's order. And as I'm doing that, he walks in. And he's kind of a big deal in our community, a business guy, has been successful. And so I walk in, and I've nicknamed him the executive. So I'm like, what's up, executive? What's going on, big bird? You know? And so I go, hey, Dory, this is the executive. You've got to know him. And he was like, hey, well, he sees her. I was like, the executive, this is Dory. And he's like, hey, Dory. And she's like, hey, how are you doing? He was like, do you know who this is? And he points to me, and I'm like, I don't know what's going to come out of his mouth. It's probably not going to be great. But he goes, this is the wampum. And on the trip, he started calling me the wampum, which he would say is the Walter Payton of ministry.
Okay.
And so Walter Payton, if you don't know, is an old football player, one of the greats. And so that's what he would call me, the WPOM, the wampum.
Okay.
Well, Dory hears this, and she says, of what? And I don't tell a lot of people that I'm in ministry because I don't want walls to come up. You know, because some people who aren't familiar with ministry or been burned by believers.
Definitely not when you're just ordering at Wingstop. It doesn't normally come up.
It doesn't come up, but it is crazy because I have so many of these conversations over a counter. I mean, I sidetrack. Yeah, I'm gonna try and stay on track. But so she says, "Of what?" And I go, "Don't listen to him. He's dumb." And the executive goes, "He's the Walter Payton of ministry." And she goes, "I'm mad at God." Okay, so we are at Wingstop. There are people behind us, and she just very freely says, "I'm mad at God."
So how do you handle that?
Well, I go, Dory, I love it that you just said that. That you felt the freedom to say that to the two of us. Literally, strangers prior to 3 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And you feel the freedom to say that. And I said, well, tell me why you're mad at God. She says, I don't want to tell you. I said, well, that's fine. And so I said, well, can I continue to tell you my order then? And she says, that sounds good. And so I finished with my order, and I said, Dory, I'm so proud of you. I love it that you were vulnerable enough and you trusted us enough to share how you felt about God. That's really real. And a lot of people aren't going to be that real, especially in this situation.
She must have been really mad to just say it to strangers.
Exactly. It's crazy. And I think that we talked about listening, Blaine, and I think that listening is so close to love that people don't know the difference. And when you can become a good listener and give people space to talk, even if it's over the counter at Wingstop, wherever it is, I think people are drawn to that and want that space. People are not being listened to.
No. You totally stand out if you just care or ask a couple questions of people.
100%.
Hey everybody, I wanted to take a moment and let you know that the Reach podcast is brought to you by Search, a ministry dedicated to sharing Jesus through friendships and conversations for nearly 50 years. Learn more or get involved at searchnational.org.
was that where the conversation ended?
It's not where the conversation ended. So we got our food. We went and sat down, ordered our drinks. I like ordering a drink at Wingstop. Is that Coke machine? You have 1,500 choices, and I tried to do like a suicide on there. I want one of everything in one cup, 20-ounce cup. And so we sat down, and Dory would come by, and so I'll be try to reel her in, have more conversation, engage her more. And then when we were leaving, she was by like the to-go counter. So I said, Dory, can I give you a hug? And she said, I would like that. And so this stranger, we had a moment at the beginning, and I hug her, and I said, I'll be back because I want to have more conversations about this. And she said, well, we'll see. I'm not sure she was so excited about me coming back into the restaurant. And so I get in my truck. I'm heading back to my office. I'm 15 minutes from the restaurant. And this is just going to probably sound weird or foreign or, I don't know, charismatic, whatever. But I felt like that the Lord was inviting me to turn back around. And I had just gotten my business cards in from Search, right? And so I was really willing to give those out. We really don't do business cards anymore in today's society. But I had some in my truck. And so I turn around and I pull into the Wingstop parking lot, and I get out a business card, and I just said, "Mad at God? ? I'd love to chat further." And so I walked in, and nobody was in there at the time, which was crazy. I mean, it's just at the lunch hour, probably around 1 o'clock, 1:30. And I walk in, and there's Dory behind the counter. I'm like, Dory, what's up? Kind of like that.
Yeah.
And I walk up, and I said, hey, I'm not going to stay, but I wanted to give you my card and just say, if you want to continue this conversation, then here's my contact information. It has email on there. It has my phone number. You could call me. You could text. We could have a purely email relationship about this if that's easier for you. And she said, thank you for this.
Wow. That's what I love about that interaction, Johnny, is it really ties into what we talk about a lot here, the value of one person.
100%.
And that God cares about everybody. Infinitely. And the fact that you were paying attention, to somebody just when you're ordering lunch at a restaurant, and most of us, at least I know for me, it's easy just to go in and go, got the blinders on, I'm having lunch with my friend. I'm not that interested in the person who's taking my order. I got other stuff to do. And you're really very intentional in this interaction. And I think it's a great thing, a really great thing. And who knows what God will do. Is there any follow-up? Anything happen?
Of course there's follow-up.
So what happened?
I used to be in fundraising, and in fundraising we would say the fortune is in the follow-up. And I think that's so true in any relationship we have with fellow believers, with non-believers. We say we're going to pray for someone, or, my kid is having a surgery. I take notes. I write that down. I put it into my calendar. I'll send folks texts the morning of. And then after the surgery, I want to be good at following up. Just like in fundraising, if we go and we make an ask for a gift, if we don't follow up on that, it's very unlikely that they're going to bring the gift forward. And so, man, if I'm praying, I want to know how God is working through those prayers.
Sure, yeah.
And so, of course there's follow-up. And so and I would back up a little bit. So the executive, I'm trying to invest into his life, right? And then he sees this interaction. We go and sit down, and he's like, I've never had an experience like that. I've never had an encounter. And so he's getting to see what I would say Jesus working in his people, and he's getting to have a taste of eternity in conversations. And so he tastes that, and I'm like, hey, just so you know, you and I are having lunch here every 6 weeks. Even if we get tired, I don't get tired of wings, but even if I did, I'm still going to go there every 6 weeks to have a conversation with Dory. And so I've been in there since then 7, 8 times. Walk in, she knows us, she knows me by name. She's already knows what we're going to talk about, right? She's opened herself up to having those conversations. And we're friends on this level. When you're friends, you can talk about anything.
Yeah.
And so I have since learned that she's married. Her husband is in the penitentiary. She's divorcing him. She has a couple kids with a couple different guys. And we're still continuing the conversation. Has she called me? No. Has she emailed me? No. Has she texted me? No. But I still want to create margin in my life. I still have to eat lunch, and I still want to hang out with my buddy. So really, this Wingstop, we're killing multiple birds with one stone. And she is on my prayer list. I have a prayer list of 150 people that I pray for every day when I get to the office, and she's on there. And so it keeps me familiar, her at the top of my heart and the top of my spirit, to be praying for her and to be reminded, don't forget to go in there and don't forget to follow up with your buddy.
Yeah, and it's like we're trying to do on this podcast is tell people and show them really that anybody can do this. Anybody can be living on mission. It's totally doable.
Yes.
We all have to go to lunch.
Yes.
We all can be a little. This doesn't take any more of your time.
No.
And yet you're making a difference. And who knows what the difference will be down the road? We never know what God's really doing in people's hearts.
Gosh.
And so it'll be cool to see. Maybe someday, maybe in heaven, who knows what happens with her. So I like to end the podcast this way with one question.
Okay.
All right. So what's the one takeaway from this interaction that you would want our listeners to leave with?
Yeah. One of my favorite verses, Blaine, is Colossians 4:2. And it says, devote yourselves to prayer, being watchful and thankful. And my challenge for us as believers, as God's people, is that we would be praying for opportunities like this to have meaningful, significant, intentional conversations with anybody. If I'm praying for that, devote yourselves to prayer is one thing. The second part is, am I watchful? God, give me eyes to see and ears to hear, that when I create, and margin is a big deal. Man, people that like, man, we can go to lunch, but I got 30 minutes. I'm like, we're not even gonna go to lunch. I need 90, because that creates space and margin to have the conversations and the tangent. And so that would be the challenge is, do we have the margin in our life? Do we have the eyes to see maybe what God is inviting us into and to be used by Him?
Well, thank you, Johnny. Great
Absolutely.
Conversation, man.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Blaine.
Thanks for listening to the Reach Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. That'd be a good idea. Share it with a friend and leave us a review to help others find the podcast. Now, for more resources, please visit reachothers.org and follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and we'd love to hear from you.